Good afternoon. My name is Allison McKenzie, and I am the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of the proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, last amended on March 9, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review in the back of the room and online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, should please stand now and take an oath administered by the board's attorney.
If you all raise your right hand, I need you to answer out loud. You swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio rules of evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, before you begin your comments, please state your name and address for the record. We do have a little bit of outstanding business from last time. We have the staff approval for 327 Milton Street that we did not have a quorum for last time, so I'd like to do that first. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that as staff approval from last month? If not, I would entertain a motion on that approval.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the finding of the staff as presented.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith-Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
I abstain.
The chair votes aye. Okay, moving on to item number 1.
And item number 1 is an application for a wall mural at 4024 Hamilton Avenue. We did have this on the consent agenda, unless anyone.
Does anyone have any questions, or would you like to pull item number 1 off the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion regarding item number 1.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the
Zoning relief.
zoning relief, thank you. And
Certificate of
certificate of appropriateness for 4024 Hamilton Avenue is laid out by staff.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith-Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Item number 1 passes. On to item number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 2 is the continuance of the application for certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 1624 Elm Street and 9 Green Street. This was previously heard by the Historic Conservation Board at the October 6th hearing and was tabled in order to give the applicant a chance to revise the design of the parking lot to increase the landscaping and screening that is provided. So the applicant has updated their plan. So you can see on the screen, the original plan was on the left that had the 1-foot landscape buffer and the fence placed in the center of that landscaping area. The plan on the right shows that that buffer has been expanded to 3 feet on both Green Street and Elm Street by essentially shortening the length of the parking spaces and shortening the width of the drive aisle. So zoning relief is still needed for the buffer areas because the zoning code requires 5 feet of area there, and there's 3 feet provided by the applicant. There are also no tree plantings proposed in this area, but it will be landscaped with grasses and other landscaping material that should provide more effective screening than what a 1-foot wide buffer would be able to provide. So staff finds that the zoning relief that is still required is appropriate in the interest of historic preservation in order to provide these parking spaces and the increased landscape buffer while this lot is going to be used as a parking lot until a future development is able to be placed on this. So staff recommends the board take the following action based on plans by Dellinger Architects dated 10/25/2025. Approve the conditional use for the parking facility. Approve the special exception to reduce the 5-foot perimeter landscape along Green Street to 3 foot. Approve the special exception to reduce the 5-foot perimeter landscape along Elm Street to 3 feet. Approve the special exception to eliminate the required 3-foot perimeter landscape along the interior side and rear lines. And approve the special exception to eliminate the required tree plantings within the 5-foot landscape buffer. Staff also recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness for 1624 Elm and 129 Green Streets with the following conditions. The parking lot concrete stamping pattern shall be submitted to staff for approval prior to the issuance of building permits. And the building permits must be issued within 2 years. The COA shall expire.
Thank you. It looks like we do have the owner and architect with us. If there's anything you would like to add, now is your chance. Just please identify yourself for the report.
I'm Denny Dellinger, 228 Mohawk Street. I'm the architect. I have no additional comments.
Little toy. Brahma Ramineni.
Thank you. I do just have one question for staff. Does Cincinnati zoning code not have a minimum size for parking spaces?
There is a minimum size for required parking spaces that are required to meet a parking requirement. For the parking lot, it's not needed to meet a parking requirement, so we don't regulate the size of the space.
Makes sense. Just wanted to make sure we weren't missing a variance that we needed here. Are there any questions by the board for the applicants or staff? I don't have anyone else signed up for this item, so given that, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness.
Is that a motion?
Yes. I did say that.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith Dobbins?
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Sonderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
On to item number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 3, excuse me, is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and just the certificate of appropriateness for 1209 Main Street, which is located in the Over the Rhine Historic District. This is an existing 5-story building with the shallow setback on the right side and zero setback on the left. Current building has a small inset courtyard area on that north elevation that is not something that is visible from Main Street in front of the building. The courtyard, there's a first floor addition that covers the entire floor area or the lot area of that lot. And the courtyard insets and starts on the 2nd floor, extending up through the 5th floor. So the applicant is in the process of renovating this existing building, and during that renovation, it was discovered that that inset courtyard area on the side of the building is only 1 width thick as far as the brick is concerned. And there are concerns about the structural stability of that wall being, 4 stories above that single-story addition below with a single width of thickness. With the structural calculations for the rehabilitation, it was determined that that wall will need to be replaced to be more structurally sound. So the issue with replacing that wall in kind and adding additional brick widths is that the bearing beam that this courtyard wall sits on is not wide enough to allow additional widths of brick. It's 8 inches wide, so really the only feasible option at this point is to remove the wall as it exists and rebuild it with a wood frame wall that would fit within that existing 8-inch beam. The applicant is proposing to remove the wall on those 3 sides of that courtyard inset area and rebuild that with a frame wall that will be faced with lap siding material. It's a fiber cement lap siding. And while that is not an in-kind replacement with the existing materials due to the conditions of the building and its existing circumstances. And combined with the very limited visibility of this courtyard area, staff finds it to generally be appropriate. So you can see in the rendering here, this is the area that will be replaced with that new wood frame wall. There will be window openings placed in it. The existing brick wall that's here has been altered with the existing openings. So they're not historic locations for the existing windows in most circumstances. So when the new wall is rebuilt, they will add windows back in, which will illuminate the staircase on the interior side of this wall. New windows will be placed in the same general locations on these side walls. And then on the 5th floor, the existing deck will be rebuilt in this area, and the window openings will be altered on this to have a larger picture type window in this area. So as you can see on the images that are provided, like I said, there's very limited visibility from this. It's over 100 feet down the street before you can get a clear view to the courtyard, and that is even then screened partially by the existing buildings and the existing deck that's in that space. So the actual material of these walls will be very minimally visible from any viewpoint surrounding the building. So considering the condition of the building and the circumstances that are requiring the rebuild, staff finds this to be substantially compliant with the guidelines and to generally be appropriate. So staff recommends the board take the following actions based on the plans by AA engineers dated 10/24/24. Approve the certificate of appropriateness for 1209 Main Street with the conditions that the fiber cement lap siding shall be dark in color and shall be smooth sided with no wood grain texture. And that 2, the fiber cement lap siding shall have a reveal no greater than 5 inches. Number 3, the specific window models for replacement windows shall be submitted to the urban conservator for approval prior to the issuance of the building permits. And 4, the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. It looks like we do have an applicant here, Larry Pauly. Do you have anything that you would like to add to what the urban conservator has told us?
If you have any questions about SSRG's information about their application or their suggested estimate for work on the project, I have notes here from a person who was unable to attend. His son is sick. And I have examples of colors of the siding that I thought I should bring to give you a feel. This is not the finished surface because it will be a smooth surface, but these are the 3 colors essentially. This would be to replace the brick area. And our suggestion for the trim would be more like this color because it would give you more of a limestone feel, which is what basically the other lintels on the current buildings are at this point. So it would fit in better with the overall decoration of the current building materials. However, we're happy to use white. These are the choices from the James Hardie company that were provided to us by them. I'm happy to leave these here if you care to debate it any further as well.
Are there any questions by the board for the applicant or staff? Mr. Owen, I believe the current condition would allow you to make a determination on the colors of the siding.
Correct.
I don't have anyone else signed up for this issue, so.
I'd just like to say that I think this is a tremendous way to come together to solve a problem. I mean, this is really great. I'm really happy that this happened.
Thank you. Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I would like to thank Doug and other people from this office and other people that have come together from SSRG, as well as our architect, Danny Dellinger, for putting this application together and helping me to get it forward. I've never been here before, and it's been a tremendously important process. And Doug has been extremely helpful and friendly in dealing with this. So I'm so pleased with the way it's coming out too. We're very happy about it.
After that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness is laid out by staff.
Call the roll. Ms. Smith Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Yeah, super fortunate that nothing bad happened with such a flimsy wall. So glad you're getting it fixed.
Our engineer found it, and I'm pleased that he did before something happened. I agree. Thank you.
Okay, next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 4 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 29 East 8th Street. This is an individual historic landmark building for the St. Louis Church in the downtown neighborhood. The church is currently vacant and the applicant is proposing the renovation of the building for a change of use that will involve some exterior work, primarily including some changes to the interior courtyard area, a roof deck, and gates on the 3 main entries at ground level. So the applicant is proposing the renovation into the building into new studio space. There will be a variety of different ways that the building will be used, but primarily, concerning the exterior elevations, the conservation guidelines for this district do not regulate the interior, so we are only looking at the exterior work that is proposed. This is the existing courtyard area. So 8th Street runs along to the north, off to the left of this, with Walnut on behind the building. The main facade is opposite this courtyard area. And this is the upper floors of the building. This is a lower level space that occupies that lower portion of the building. So the courtyard is only on these upper floors. And you can see on the applicant's exhibit here, they have indicated the areas that will be altered within this courtyard. So it primarily concerns the window openings on these interior courtyard walls, as well as the rooftop equipment and shelters that are on this front portion. So essentially the later mechanical additions and shelters that are on this courtyard will be removed. This large air handling unit in the center will be removed. The skylight will be restored. And then the windows along these courtyard walls will be removed and replaced with larger storefront style windows to allow more light to infiltrate within the building. See in the renderings that are provided, you can see that storefront system here and here. That equipment that was previously on the roof has been removed, skylight has been restored, and this is a new staircase penthouse that will allow access up to the rooftop area. Another rendering of that, which will give access to the rooftop deck. So you can see from the 8th Street vantage point, this is the view. You can see the alterations are fairly limited as to what will be visible. There are also street trees along the street that will further obscure the views, so that really none of this will be highly visible. And for the main visible portion, which is that staircase penthouse, it is glass and steel construction. It's contemporary but compatible with the building. Having it mostly transparent will allow the views to essentially go through the addition to still have the main portion of the building be visible and be the most important thing that you see on that site. For the rooftop deck, you can see here, this is where the penthouse exits onto the rooftop. This will be the new deck area that's installed on the existing roof. Glass rail system will be installed setback on this roof beyond the parapet, so that it does not extend up above the parapet substantially, and it will not be against the parapet, so that the sight lines, when viewed from the street, will really not see any of this material due to the setback from the wall and the existing parapet that's up there. So staff has really no concerns with the proposed courtyard alterations or the rooftop deck, primarily due to the very limited visibility that any of this will have from the street. Staff's main concern, and really only concern on this project, are related to the proposed gates that the applicant would like to install at each of the 3 main building entries. So the existing entries currently are very ornate. There's carved stone relief work within each of these entryways, as well as marble columns and other ornamental features. These are all, in staff's opinion, highly significant character defining features of this building. So with the guidelines stating that ornamental and character defining features on the building should not be covered, staff is concerned with the proposed gates. So in this image, you can see the basis of design for these gates. They will extend up, not entirely to the top of these openings, but enough to prevent anyone from scaling or climbing inside, getting through these gates. So they will be installed into the concrete sidewalk in front of the building, and they will not be anchored to the building itself, which is a benefit to the building that will not cause any damage to the existing facade or the existing carving or relief work within these entryways. However, the applicant has stated that the gates will almost always be in the closed position, assuming that that will be acceptable from the building code standpoint. So essentially, the building is proposed to be lightly staffed once it is operational. So there will be, according to the applicant, a maximum of 5 people in the building at any given time. So the intent is to leave these gates closed because there will not be much coming or going from the building during business hours. It is not intended to be something that is highly interactive with the public. So there's not a lot of need for people to be coming into or exiting the building during typical business hours. So the applicant has stated that the gates are likely to remain closed during the majority of the time. So this is staff's concern that these gates, when they are closed, they will substantially obscure these ornamental arched openings and entryways. The applicant stated they're needed in order to keep homeless people from loitering on the steps or sleeping on the steps or urinating or doing other things on the steps, as well as to prevent any kind of vandalism or break-ins. So staff is sympathetic to the concerns, but ultimately, the way that the guidelines are written, staff does find that this would be a substantial detriment to the building by covering the character defining features of these intricate relief carvings on the entryways. So with that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions based on the plans by Lyle Architecture and Design dated 9/2/2025. Approve the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed courtyard and rooftop deck alterations and additions at 29 East 8th Street with the following condition: that the building permit must be issued within 2 years of the COA shall expire, and deny a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed middle entry gates at the 2 Walnut Street entrances and the 1 East 8th Street entrance.
Thank you. It looks like we do have the applicant David Lyle with us. Is there anything you would like to add?
Sure. David Lyle, representing 29 East 8th Street. My client is a unique client. He is purchasing this building as a residence. He'll be living on the top 2 floors, and his studio will be taking up the sanctuary spaces. And so it will be occupied probably 3 or 4 days a month, maybe a week a month. And so the concern is that it's already been broken into a few times. There are people that are sleeping in that area, on the steps and around the area. So his concern with the amount of investment he's putting into the equipment for his art and the sound and all of those things, that the building is going to stay unoccupied a majority of the time. And his concern is that there's going to be damage and loitering and looting potentially of the building. We are very willing to redesign the gates to whatever standard you need that allows us to keep the people off the steps or keep it private and secure. We're very open to that. So whatever we can do to redesign, we'll be glad to do that.
Are there questions by the board for the applicant or staff?
So I guess I'm a little confused. I hear what you say about the safety and everything. So what is, what would be the best way to handle this thing other than deny it? Is there, have you communicated what type of gate or whatever you would need? And then it was turned down, or?
No, this is the gate that was proposed. I don't necessarily have an issue with the style of the gate that is proposed here. I think the issue is just the gate itself. I'm not sure, if, I suppose a gate that has very wide spaces between the rails, that would allow as much transparency as possible, would be the best option. But, with the intricateness of these entryways, I'm not sure what the solution would be. I did not realize that the building would only be occupied for a week, a month. I don't think that necessarily changes my recommendation, because it's still a semi-permanent alteration to the existing building. But, I'm not sure that, when I spoke to the applicant previously, I think the previous break-in attempt that happened came from the alley side. The gates would not help that. There is mention of security cameras at each of the doors and the building corners that will be installed. I think things like that would go a long way towards preventing break-ins, and just having the building occupied would help that as well. So, unfortunately, there are homeless people in the city, and stoops like this can provide an attractive place to rest or to sleep at night. The applicants talked about, I don't remember the term for it, but the anti-sleeping treads and things like that on the stairs. I think these are all things that do work with the guidelines. The gates themselves in this kind of building is just really where I struggle. And the applicant had showed some images of other churches that have gates and things like that, but none of them had this amount of ornate carving and grand entryways that this building has.
So that was gonna be my next question, is how did this break-in happen, and was it through the gates? But it was not,
That's my understanding.
is that correct?
There was through the back door, and there have been other areas, yeah, but not through these that I know of at least. It's the sleeping on there and the occupation of it.
Have you investigated other technology solutions, cameras, alarms, that type of thing that might be less visibly intrusive to the landmark?
We've looked at some of the, like we talked about, some of the objects you can put on the steps that keep people from sleeping on them. But then if for some reason there's a fire, then those become inhibiting of the exit. The doorways themselves have panic hardware, so if the gates were closed and there was something issue inside, some people could get out. But again, if we can make, the spaces wider so you can see through more thinner metal, be glad to do that. I'd rather not get it rejected. I'd rather get it pushed to see if we can come up with a solution that's more acceptable. And one more thing, the way that we have these mounted right now, it's through a sleeve in the concrete with a pole. So the minute that you want these removed, they can literally be pulled out and capped, and that would be it. So there's nothing being attached to the building. So there is no harm to the structure itself.
Well, yes, there is, because the harm is that you can't see it. You can't see the ornate designs within that area there. And I understand the idea of wanting to keep the homeless from that, but I think there's a greater value with people driving down the street or walking down the street and seeing that architecture, seeing the design of that building. And while I appreciate the fact that the scalloped edges on the fence go with the archway on the door, no, as far as I'm concerned, you can't do that.
I'm certainly willing to entertain a continuance that would allow them to continue to work with staff instead of a denial. I do think that I'm hearing from several members of the board maybe that a gate is going to be a tough uphill battle. But certainly, if you'd like to keep trying to find something that's acceptable, we I think are encouraging of that.
You have other suggestions too.
Yeah, I'd like to say it does bother me that this building isn't gonna be actually used much. It's not gonna be people in there much. Perhaps, and I know it costs money, but perhaps a guard. Somebody actually in the building or something, you know. When that thing's only got somebody in it, like a week, a month, there's a big target there.
It's a whole body of research, criminal prevention through environmental design. Kind of, I think there's opportunities for you to explore this with staff and maybe some other city departments to figure out a way to develop a less intrusive system.
I don't have anyone signed up from the public. I would entertain a motion at this point unless there are additional questions or concerns.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this.
Would we like to approve the portion that that staff has recommended approval of and just continue the gate portion, or would we like to continue the whole thing?
I'm fine with the courtyard and the rooftop alterations. It's just the gate that I have the issue with. So if we want to approve the certificate of appropriateness for that and then deny it for the gate, that's good.
Should be accepting staff recommendation then, or just continue the second one?
I think it would be an approval of the first piece of relief for the COA and a continuance for the gate entrances.
All right, make an amendment to my motion to approve the COA for 29 East 8th Street in relation to the proposed courtyard and rooftop deck alteration elements, and to continue discussion on the metal entry gates.
Do you have a time frame that you have in mind for coming back to us with a new recommendation, staff? I don't know if you want to weigh in on that as well.
Well, our goal is to have construction drawings done by the end of this year for the main portion. So in keeping with that, we'd like to have this gate resolved or whatever these
So maybe
determinations.
continuance up to 60 days. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Continuing to up to 60 days then.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, item number 5.
Item number 5 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 325 Site Street, which is located in the Over the Rhine Historic District in the Mount Auburn neighborhood. So the applicant is proposing the construction of 5 new attached townhouses on an existing lot. There will be a subdivision of the lot into 5 separate lots in order to create individual lots for each of the townhouse units. So it's eventually going to be 5 separate lots, 5 separate buildings. So the applicant does need zoning relief for each of the proposed lots. This will be going to the Planning Commission for the subdivision, but the Historic Conservation Board will hear the zoning relief related to the hillside review on each of these lots. So there is hillside review required on each of the 5 lots. For lot 1, it will be which is the furthest west lot, the interior lot. There is a hillside review required for the 0-foot front yard and the 0-foot total side yards, as well as the 8-foot rear yard setback. And then there is additional hillside review for the excavation and fill cumulatively that comes to 9 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit. On lot 2, it needs the 0-foot front yard hillside review and the 8-foot rear yard. hillside review. Lot 3 is those same 2 hillside reviews for the front and the rear setbacks. Lot 4, again, is the front and the rear setback, as well as a excavation of 8.83 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit. And then finally, lot 5, the same front and rear setback. This one also needs the setback for the 0-foot side yards that are proposed, and then excavation and fill for a total amount of 16 feet, which I'll have to double check that.
This is all.
I'll look at that number before we make that motion. I feel like that is not accurate. But anyway, so the hillside relief is related to the requirements of the hillside, which needs averaging with adjacent properties to determine what the maximum setbacks would be, while the historic district, well, the zoning regulations typically do not apply for setbacks in historic districts. Because this is a hillside review, they do. So that is why this relief is needed for the setbacks. However, I would say that the buildings as proposed do meet that front lot line, as well as the corner side lot line, which is what the guidelines want the buildings to do. And then the rear yard, it is simply the 8 feet at that rear section where the deck extends. Without the deck, they would have closer to that 20-foot setback. So staff finds that the hillside review is appropriate here in this because the buildings do still meet the development pattern of the historic context in this area. So that being said, for the certificate of appropriateness review, essentially the project is looked at as 5 separate buildings, as they are proposed to be on separate lots in each their own individual townhouse units. So there's a division in the center between each of the garage doors, essentially, on these other sections. So the building's general massing and rhythm is appropriate with the overall context on the street. This is a street that has a mix of both historic buildings and new infill development. It's about 50-50 on this side of the street between historic and new infill. So these buildings are fitting within that pattern of replacement. Most of the new construction that has gone in here is a similar type of building, attached row houses with front-loaded garages and generally about 3.5 stories in height. So staff finds that the overall massing and rhythm that is provided by these buildings does substantially meet the guidelines. With the front facade, they do have a base, middle, and top component. The base is defined by that existing slightly recessed entry pedestrian door, as well as the 1-car opening with garage. There will be technically a 2-car garage that there are tandem spaces inside, but the opening itself is only 1 car wide, which limits the exposure of those garages on that front facade. But this is a similar condition to the new infill development that's happening elsewhere on this street. Middle components are composed by the brick and fiber cement lap siding along the middle section. This is some sort of a contemporary take on an oriel window. There's a slight bump out where this brick material forms this section of the middle component, with the larger window opening within that, which typically with a historic oriel window, it was typically a larger projection and often did still have double hung windows, but there were a larger amount of windows within that opening. So staff does feel that this is a modern take on an oriel window design and finds that it is substantially appropriate according to the guidelines. And then finally, the top component with the smaller smaller window openings that simulate like a frieze window within a cornice line from the historic buildings that are on this property. Again, staff finds that this is an appropriate contemporary take for new construction that takes its inspiration from the existing historic buildings in the area without duplicating those features. So overall, staff does find that this is generally appropriate and it does substantially meet the guidelines. In staff's opinion, this is an interesting approach. Staff had originally encouraged the applicants to provide more of the brick material on the primary facades of the building. The applicants did go back and add additional brick mainly to the side and the rear elevations. They also lowered this roof, which was originally a shed roof, which made the top portion a much taller, much more prominent piece. With this gabled roof, this shed, with the gabled roof, the top portion has that lower encroachment on that roof line that creates these smaller frieze type windows, and staff feels that this is a much better approach. And then with the brick on the front, well, the applicant did not elect to add a lot more brick to this front component. However, in staff's opinion, again, this is a contemporary approach, whereas, you know, a historic building may have typically been primarily brick, but would have an oriel window that was wood framed. This is kind of flipping that design with the main wall being the fiber cement lap siding and the oriel window actually being composed of brick. So staff finds that it is meeting that general historic massing and rhythm requirements and does have just a contemporary take on the material application while still being substantially compliant with the guidelines. So the only real concern that was noticed when reviewing the materials for the project is that there is the brick component that is proposed for this is a Reading Rock product, and according to the website, all the standard sizes for these bricks are the queen size brick, which is explicitly prohibited in the guidelines. While the length and height of the individual brick product is not a major concern to staff, the more concerning portion is that the fact is that the brick is not a full width deep. So it does not have the full 4 inches of depth. It is about half of that at just over 2 inches, which is more like a thin veneer brick product, which is not something that we would typically recommend for approval. So staff would recommend that with that brick material, if that Reading Rock product can't be made in that 4-inch width depth, that a different brick be selected that does have that full width of depth. With that being said, staff recommends the board take the following actions based on plans by Heather Estrich dated 9/19/2025. For the zoning relief, lot 1, staff recommends approval of the hillside review for the 0-foot front yard setback, for the 0-foot total side yard setbacks, and for the 8-foot rear yard setback, as well as a hillside review for cumulative excavation and fill of 9 feet in excess of the 8-foot limit. For lot 2, staff recommends approval of the hillside review for the 0-foot front yard setback, 8-foot rear yard setback. On lot 3, staff recommends approval of the hillside review required for the 0-foot front yard setback and the 8-foot rear yard setback. Lot 4, staff recommends approval of the 0-foot front yard setback, the 8-foot rear yard setback, and 8.83 feet of cumulative excavation and fill. And in lot 5, staff recommends approval of the 0-foot front yard setback, the 0-foot side yard setbacks, the 8-foot rear yard setback, and the excavation and fill of 16.08 feet. And also staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness for new infill construction at 325 Site Street with the following conditions. That 1, the brick material shall be a full width and depth, 4 inches. And the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. Looks like we have a couple applicants present. Please introduce yourself and then tell us whatever you would like to add.
Chris Lacy, 5177 Salem Hills Lane. I'm the developer.
Heather Estridge, I'm the architect, 1615 Dell Terrace.
Doug, good fact finding. I was not aware that that brick was only 2 inches wide.
Okay.
Yeah, consider that.
Okay.
Anything else you would like to add in addition to what staff told us?
No, not at this point.
I do also have a William Jameson signed up. Are you part of the applicant team or a member of the public?
Member of the public.
Okay, I'll get to you in just 1 minute then. Are there any questions or comments for the applicant or staff by the board? Okay, yep, go
If I
ahead.
could clarify on that excavation and fill on that last lot, that is accurate. It is 16.8 feet. That's cumulative amounts, not any individual cut. But for some reason, that didn't sound right to me when I said it, but that is what that number is. But staff does not have an issue with that and still recommends it.
Okay, Mr. Jameson, would you like to come forward and add anything?
I was just confirming that there wasn't a height variance, and I'm happy.
Good. Anything else by the board? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on this application.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
Ms. Smith Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Nicely done. Good luck.
Thank you.
I don't have any other business. Does anyone else know of any other business that we need to do today? I would therefore entertain a motion regarding adjournment.
So trying to build 45 feet up or something.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So
All right.
Yeah.